fight of trainers in the Juventus and Torino match. Thiago Motta has lost his mind. Mohamed Salah's new club. It's official. Khvicha is leaving Naples. The footballer has requested a transfer. Vinicius' new club. You won't believe it, but this is a team from Portugal. And Uncle Deschamps announced his departure from the French national team. Zinedine Zidane will be appointed in his place. We're discussing this and more today. Friends, we've gathered 5,000 likes, which means we're getting a new video. Yes, it's only been one day, but as soon as the likes were gathered, the video was released. Those are our conditions. Well, I'll remind you that 5,000 thumbs up today guarantees that a new video will be released tomorrow. Well, I wish you a pleasant appetite and a pleasant viewing. Jean-Louidge Donnarumma could potentially be even stronger. Shock Milan fans. When the young leader of Rossoneri moved to Paris Saint-Germain, he inevitably received a wave of criticism from the red and black fans. Jakob was lured by Qatari millions, betraying his home club. That's when Donnarumma got his nickname, Dollarumma. This season, the oil money stopped soothing the Italian goalkeeper's soul, as he began to lose his place in the team's core. In Luis Enrique's football, it's important that all players can handle the ball with their feet. But this is far from Gigi's strongest side. He's good on the ribbon, that's the kind of goalkeeper he is. Let's say softly, not at all. The heart of the fans freezes every time the Italian works with the ball in his penalty area. In general, before the start of the season, they bought him a competitor, and Gigi sharply wanted to leave the passage. He has just a year and a half left on his contract, and he can put pressure on the Parisian leadership with this. Surprisingly, the only contender for the goalkeeper remains Inter Milan. Rumors of his return to northern Italy have been circulating for some time now. Of course, the football world has long been accustomed to transfers from Milan to Inter and vice versa. But Donnarumma is a product of Rossoneri. He was once supposed to become a legend of this club, but he chose money over the respect of the fans and became one of the most hated players. Now, a footballer with such a past can go for yet another treacherous transfer. Can you imagine the deafening whistle towards Donnarumma during the Milan derby? Now it's even interesting. Will the goalkeeper agree to move to one of the strongest clubs in the world, knowing what pressure awaits him there? Vinicius, like Mbappe, is planning to buy a football club, while Real Madrid's management is deciding what to do with the scandalous Brazilian. He is trying to arrange his future after the end of his football career and join the group of players who have already become owners of their own teams. Of course, it's risky. Here's Mbappe, who recently bought the French club Cannes, has already managed to get hate from the fans of this team. However, N'Golo Kante, who bought a controlling stake in the Belgian team, things are going better. According to the data, Vinicius is planning to buy a team from the second division of the Portuguese Championship, but its name is not disclosed. One can only assume that the Brazilian wants to restore some prestigious club, returning it to its former positions. There are only a few such teams. For some reason, it seems that Vinicius is looking at De Ferreira, who successfully played in the First League of Portugal 10 years ago. These are my guesses, but the club's real name remains unknown. By the way, such a fun as buying a whole football club is not a cheap entertainment. Kylian Mbappe bought a team from the second division only after a record contract with Paris Saint-Germain when his salary was more than 100 million euros. In his turn, N'Golo Kante splurged on such an expense after moving to Saudi Arabia. Perhaps the news about the acquisition of the club tells us that Vinicius is also heading to the Middle East. One way or another, there has been a lot of talk lately about the future of the Brazilian himself. Surprisingly, in the current real team, he seems to be an extra element, but still remains a valuable asset. And Saudi clubs will have no trouble laying out a record sum that Florentino Perez will not be able to refuse, and give the Brazilian the top market conditions. Such a transfer could be beneficial for all parties. Jude Bellingham humiliated Mallorca player in the semi-finals of the Spanish Super Cup. In one of the recent issues, I talked about the fact that the Englishman got on Mallorca's defender, Pablo Maffeo, making him a backheel. Turns out, this real player didn't limit himself to Bellingham. He also put talkative Maffeo in his place. I'll remind you that before the game, Mallorca's defender talked a lot. He decided to bring out Vinicius Jr., and started doing this even at the pre-match press conference. Then Maffeo stated, "I would have knocked out Vinicius in 10 seconds. This could have been the most watched fight in history." But somehow the actions on the field didn't match the player's words. During one of the skirmishes, Vinicius barely touched Maffeo, and he fell on the lawn, depicting hellish torments. That's when Bellingham couldn't stand it anymore. He walked up to the defender who had gotten up and yelled at him. 10 seconds of boxing, right? Damn it to hell. It's hard to defend Maffeo in this situation. If I don't like Vinicius' simulations, why should I suddenly like the acting skills of Mallorca's player? The question is rhetorical. Maffeo's poor behavior on the field led to repeated slaps from Bellingham. Real's halfback put him in his place, and also buried Mallorca's chances of making it to the Super Cup final. By the way, there were fears recently that Bellingham might miss the match against Barcelona. The player was uncomfortable. But Real's head coach calmed the fans yesterday, talking about the midfielder's condition. "We are confident everything is fine with Bellingham. Jude has recovered well and is in good shape," according to Carlo Ancelotti. So both teams are almost in optimal shape for the Super Cup final. And this cannot but please, because in this case, the match should be classy. La Liga president Javier Tebas has declared war on Barcelona. Yesterday on our second channel about overdose football, there was news that a large mass of Spanish clubs complained about the actions of the Catalans. The registration of Ulm and Victor and the format in which it took place damages the entire competition. If you read the originals of these appeals, you can notice that they were created as if under a carbon copy. Of course, there were questions at that moment, but they dissolved in the general mass of news about Barcelona. Now, the shocking reason why the club's claims are so suspiciously similar has become known. It turns out the president of La Liga sent everyone a list of arguments on the basis of which clubs could complain about the decision to register Ulm Victor. In fact, Javier Tebas said he would lead the whole campaign aimed at discrediting Barcelona's actions. In other words, he declared war on the Catalans. At the same time, information emerged that the league had no right to refuse Barcelona's player registration. Why? Because the Catalan leadership sent the documents on December 30th, the deadline day. And La Liga finally checked them only 3 days later. That is, the delayed submission date is not Barcelona's fault. All responsibility here lies with the slow work of the league's management. Of course, this does not negate the fact that Joan Laporta should not have dragged out the registration of players until the last minute. He should have taken the initiative in the fall, freeing the club from all this mess. But there is a conflict between La Liga and Barcelona. At times, it seems that he is devoid of legal grounds. There was just a desire to dig deeper. And as we know, you can dig all the way to China. Barcelona is selling its stars. A potential transfer may shock fans of the Catalan club, but let's sort things out in order. We will go from the most realistic to the completely fantastic sales. It's practically no secret to anyone that Ronald Araujo will leave Barcelona. Most likely he will move to Juventus on a permanent basis. Details about the defender's lease remain unconfirmed. Ben Canaria reportedly offered Barcelona $30 million for the Uruguayan defender. However, Blaugrana's leadership firmly rejected such an initiative. The Catalans want to get twice as much. And Juventus is already preparing a new offer, which will be $50 million. Let's see how Barcelona reacts to it. Meanwhile, two English giants, namely Arsenal and Manchester United, have started to monitor the situation, if it can still be called that. So far, none of the clubs are in a hurry to join the negotiations. But that possibility certainly exists. Rumors about Frenkie de Jong's transfer have also started to concrete. There has been a lot of talk about the future of the Dutchman, but no serious offers from Europe have been received yet. However, interest was shown by a club from Saudi Arabia, Al Ittihad, which began negotiations with the footballer's agents. There will be no obstacles from Barca's side. The Catalans have long since stopped seeing de Jong as a key player. Even the new head coach of the team agreed to sell the Dutchman, not finding the necessary qualities in him. Frenkie's move to Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, will become the inevitable result of his career decline from the status of an elite midfielder. But who you don't expect to see in the Middle East is Rafinha, who amazed everyone with his ambitious growth this season. At one point, he was even predicted to make it into the list of the best players of the year. But the Brazilian may soon find himself in Saudi Arabia. Spanish media report that Barcelona will consider selling him if a good offer comes in. This was to be expected after Rafinha's critical statement towards Barcelona's management. But who knew that the question of moving would be resolved so quickly? I'm not saying that this transfer will definitely happen, but some signs are already beginning to appear. Mohamed Salah will almost certainly leave Liverpool at the end of the season. There are still faint hopes for a contract extension, but they are so slim that it's not even worth considering them. The country where the Egyptian forward will play is already known. It's Saudi Arabia, but there are questions about the club. If you've been paying close attention to recent episodes, you should remember that Al Hilal was planning to replace the departing Neymar with Salah, but Al Ittihad could pose competition for this club, according to English media. Right now, they are in the midst of a battle for the country's championship title, and by summer, the battle will shift to a different front. But while the two Saudi powerhouses figure out who will get Salah, he could be snatched up by an unexpected club. When the Egyptian was just starting his European career, he played for the Swiss club Basel, then followed an unsuccessful transfer to Chelsea. After that came Roma, and lastly Liverpool. So the Basel management decided, why not actually try to transfer Salah? But what can they offer him? Payment in elite Swiss chocolate and a head of cheese? In short, having given up hope, Basel's press service left Salah such a message. Our doors are always open for you. It's a pity the Swiss don't have £500,000 they're ready to pay the Egyptian every week for 3 years. In that case, he would have considered a new career continuation option. Otherwise, he can only bring his old comrades. A fight broke out between the coaches of two Italian clubs, resulting in the mutual dismissal of the instigators. Turin derbies should always be marked by passion, both on the field and beyond its boundaries. It's the law. This is what fans come to the stands for, and viewers settle in front of their TV screens. And during the last meeting between Torino and Juventus, there were plenty of emotions. Already in the first minutes of the confrontation, passions flared up along the sideline. The reason was that Torino players were slow to give the ball to Juventus for a standard restart. I immediately note that this is information from the source. I have not seen such a thing in the translation. In any case, the degree of tension was understood from the first minutes. Especially the Torino coach was excited. Vanoli reacted hyper-emotionally to any adverse event in the match. But the final word was with the Juventus coach. Again, during the broadcast, little was clear. The directors didn't prepare us any beautiful shots. It's good that there is an Italian press that quickly responds to all events. According to local newspapers, the reason for the fight at the beginning of the second half was due to the actions of Thiago Motta. The sideline referee even said he gave both coaches a red card. Because of this, the degree. He gave both coaches a red card. Because of this, the degree of opposition slightly decreased, and the teams ended up drawing. She became the 12th for Juventus in the current Serie A draw. Can you imagine that? The Turin team remains undefeated in the championship. But having such a beautiful status, they risk flying past the Champions League zone. Judging by the game, maybe this is even fair. Zinedine Zidane has finally awaited the opportunity to lead the French national team. His competitor Didier Deschamps announced his intention to leave his post after the end of the next World Cup, thus ending his era of a decade and a half. Ideally, Deschamps should have left his position after the final with Argentina, so that the new coach could start building his team with a golden generation of players. But everyone was so euphoric from the performances at the World Cup that Deschamps was offered a new contract, the result of which was the team's bleak performance at the Euro. Now it's interesting. Will the upcoming ideal become a shameful point in Deschamps' career as the head of the French national team? The federation's leadership almost unanimously supports the appointment of Zinedine Zidane. True, there are some individuals who would prefer to see Thierry Henry in the coaching seat, but their voices are lost in the mass that sympathizes with Zidane. This includes the current head of the federation, Philippe Diallo. According to the source, he has already told Zidane that the position of the head coach of the French national team is his and only his, so there is no need to doubt this appointment. Against the backdrop of discussions about the upcoming reshuffles of the French national team, interest arises regarding the fate of the coaching chair of Real Madrid. Recently, there have been rumors that the management of the Slovakne has agreed with Zidane as the successor to Ancelotti. Now it's clear that this candidate is being ruled out. Florentino Perez wouldn't appoint Zidane for just one season, would he? Of course, this guarantees Real a victory in the Champions League. But questions arise about the team's future prospects. It's better to appoint a coach for a longer term. But doubts are also emerging about Xabi Alonso's candidacy. It seems that the Spanish coach wants to continue working at Bayer Leverkusen. Then who will lead the Madrid team next season? Guardiola, Slutsky, maybe Mostoy? Write your opinion in the comments. Khvicha is getting closer to a sensational move to Paris Saint-Germain. It's worth saying that the football transfer world is an unpredictable thing. Today, one player is touted for Liverpool. Tomorrow, Manchester United is already being called the favorite for his transfer. It was evident to all that Khvicha would probably leave Naples. Even the main coach of the Azzurri has announced about the imminent transfer of the forward. Khvicha's unexpected request to sell him left me shocked and upset, and I stepped back. I wouldn't want him to think that I'm forcing him if he stays. Last summer, I hoped to convince him about the project, but obviously, I failed. We're losing a key player, Conte said. Everything is Italian, and only occasionally there are rumors about moving to other clubs. Of course, only occasionally there are rumors about moving to other clubs. Of course, until the documents are signed, there can't be 100% certainty in the transfer. But at the moment, Paris Saint-Germain is the most realistic prospect. Parisians offer Kvaratskhelia very good conditions. Rumors say his salary will be about 10 million euros per season. This is significantly more than they agreed upon. Gianluca Di Marco talks about the existence of a verbal agreement between them. Gianluca Di Marco discusses a verbal agreement that exists between the parties. Final negotiations, in which the last details will be decided, are due to take place next week. The final format of the deal will be discussed. The passenger can pay approximately 75 million euros, or lower the price to 70 million, but include the lease of Milan Skriniar in the agreement. In general, such nuances are unlikely to become a stumbling block for this dancer. So, Kvaratskhelia will be able to join the Paris team before the crucial match in the Champions League against Manchester City. It's quite possible that Griezmann will even make the starting lineup for this match. And if he also brings victory, he will become a real messiah for the Paris Saint-Germain fans. Former Real Madrid and Barcelona midfielder Luis Figo found himself in the spotlight, but not thanks to football. The Portuguese got into a heated social media argument after criticizing the Spanish authorities' decision. Figo criticized the use of state funds for an event commemorating the anniversary of dictator Francisco Franco's death. It would have been better to direct this money to help those affected by the floods in Valencia, he stated. These words provoked some kind of crazy stream of negativity on the internet, which the Portuguese for some reason decided to respond to. One of the users lashed out at Figo, calling him a fascist pig. The footballer replied bluntly, "I'm rich, and this makes me feel dependent and useless." It's exactly people like you who do nothing and live off similar stories. The conflict continued when another commentator reminded of the tax scandal in which Figo was accused of evading the payment of 2 million euros. The Portuguese apparently got upset about this. He responded in a harsh manner. "Rat, you talk a lot and know little. I paid more taxes in Spain in 1 year than you did in your entire life. So you could live off this useless story." These arguments lead to schoolboy fights. Only for some reason, instead of schoolboys, grown men have gathered here. This certainly does not honor them, especially considering his mediocrity in the football environment. But now we have something to chew on. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching and for subscribing to the channel. My name is Kirill Cass, and this was your daily dose of football. Peace to your house and to Yo Hangi, friends.